A lot of alumni in the room tonight, but one alumnus who's going to come up and say a few words tonight has a different perspective. He attended Landmark College, I think in the 90s, and was older than the typical student, so, but benefited tremendously nonetheless. So we're so proud to have Russell Cosby here tonight to give us his thoughts on what Landmark did for him so many years ago. So Russell, could you come on up to the podium?
Good evening. I would like to let everyone know I started Landmark College in 1997. But how that came about, excuse me, was in the 50s when I started school, in the 5th grade, my reading was very, very bad. I could do math, but my reading was horrible. And this caused problems within myself because people felt that I was a disease or something of that sort. You go out there, you get picked on the baseball team, and I was like 3 grades behind in reading, and I would have my book covered up with a brown bag. And you would always have someone who knew that you were in a lower reading class and uncover it and say, look what Cos is reading. And this came to be funny, and I would run home. And in special class, we would go on little farm trips, and when we came back to school, there would be a few little kids out there to make fun of you, and you would run home in shame. So this came to be a real dark side of my academics. But my mother will always tell me that I was smart, and my brother, he would always tell me I was smart. So my mother said, always hold your head up high. So a friend of my mother's, when let me go back, my mother took me to a doctor, and he said, well, don't worry about Russell. When he's turned 12, the light bulb will come on and you have no more problem. Well, when I turned 14, I said, Mom, I'm still struggling. So she said, well, let's go back. Well, maybe when he turns 17, the bulb will come on. So what happened, a friend of my mother said, well, there was a trade school, and I had to pass a test. So I went to trade school, and I entered into the school. Now, this school, for the first 3 hours, you had academics to do, because they said if you graduated from here, we wanted you to be able to write a manifest, carry yourself in a respectable way of a job. And they didn't have any clocks because with me, at test time, I would look at the clock, and the clock was, and I had a very hard time, and I didn't complete my assignments. So as time went on, then I was chased home from school because I might have missed a word in spelling bee. And I've been through all these things of being bullied, being in special class, and in the special class they would say it was OB, out of brain. So I was called all these names. I went to trade school and I did fine. And later on I got married, and to speed it up a little bit, Ennis is my nephew. Quite a few of you know the story about him. He went to Landmark for a summer. And Ennis did well. He went to Morehouse after that summer, and he graduated on honor roll. Then he went to Columbia and got a dual master's, and he graduated with that. When he graduated, I was so happy. I said, oh, Ennis, I'm so happy for you. And he was taller than me. He looked at me, he said, Unc, I'd like you to do something. I think you have what I have. And he said, I'd like you to get diagnosed. I didn't have no idea what diagnosing was. So I went on and I was diagnosed, and they said, well, you can learn. I was 52 years old. And I was happy. So I came home, I said, I'm dyslexic and I can learn. And I was going to fish and just bowl and have me some fun. So Ennis said, I want you to do me one more thing, Unc. I said, what's that? He said, I want you to go to school. I said, oh, Ennis, no, not me, not at this age here. So he said, yes. I said, my wife had a honeydew list, and that thing was growing. So I said, if you can get your aunt to let me go, I'll go. But I was just figuring on ducking that honeydew list. So she looked at me after he talked, and that's how I ended up at Landmark. That was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. I had Dan Toomey as my reading teacher and tutor. He was a little short guy, soft-spoken, and for the first week I was tight. I was like, okay, now what is he getting ready to say smart to me? And he said, well, go ahead, Russell, go ahead. And he was trying to get all kind of material for me to read. And he came in one time with Langston Hughes. I have read that with no problem. He looked at me and he smiled. He said, you like this, don't you? I said, yeah, this is real interesting. So he said, well, I'll tell you what I want you to do from now on. Like you jump start a car, you read a paragraph every morning before you start class. And that brought my self-esteem up to the part where it was no stopping me then. I was ready. I felt that there was nothing in the world that I couldn't do academically anymore. I was in a school with small classes. Everybody, I didn't have to hide my books. I didn't have to act shame going across the campus. And the teachers, the professors were so great, they took their time, and the classrooms were small. So it was, my math teacher was Sam Prescott, and one day he said, I'm gonna give you a test tomorrow, I want you to be ready. I said, okay, okay. Came in and it was a written test. I said, what are you doing? He said, you can do this. I said, man, we haven't done no written assignments in math. He said, just take your time. So for a while I felt a little tight, but then I said, no, I can do it. And from that point on, anything that Landmark gave me, I challenged it. My writing, it improved. The students around there were very, very helpful to me because I was the oldest student on campus at that time. And they respected me, and they would say, well, what's going on? How you like it here? I said, well, if you have any problems, you just ask your teachers, and they'll give it to you. I said, we're not here to fail. We can't fail. Everybody made fun of us for a long, long time. And I said, if I can do it, you can do it. I said, because I've been beat down longer than anybody here. And I said, I know what it is to have your hard time and your hard feelings, and we can get by this. But Landmark is something I will never forget. Dan Toomey, I give everything to him because he was my reading teacher, and that's where I was failing the most at it, was in reading. And Greg Eddy was my writing teacher, and he helped me tremendously. And it's just so many things that happened at Landmark. I had Kurzweil 3000. That was a system that you could set to read at your speed. See, what I used to do when I would read, I would put words in, I would take words out. And the teacher would ask me, well, why am I doing it? I told him I didn't know, which I didn't know. It sounded good to me, but but it wasn't working. But once I set the Kurzweil on the speed that I read on, I didn't have to do that anymore. I didn't add anything, put anything. And then I couldn't believe my writings myself. I would write, and I would read it, and I said, golly, I did that myself. So it got to the point at 54 years old, I would call my wife and say, let me tell you, I got an A on this assignment, and let me tell you what I did. And I researched here, I went to the library, and I did my research, it came out right, and I wrote it one time, and I turned it in. And she would be like, she said, oh, I really like that, baby. I said, okay. I said, I'll call you back later. I got some homework to do. That was, that was the first time in my life that I loved doing homework. Why? Because I could do it by myself. We had study hall. I would go to study hall, and I could study there and get all my assignments together. And it was such a great feeling because I never had that in my life, where no one was making fun of me, no one was doubting me. And at 54 years old, my chest is already 47. I think I was about 52, because I was just happy. And I walked around very proudly and watched the other students, and we had study class and everything. And that was a big help to me. And as you know, Vermont has some very, very cold winters, but that didn't bother me. I went to class in the snow. I went to class in the sleet. I went to some of the classes that didn't have no air, but it was something that I loved doing. And I have some classmates that I had some classes with, and we had a lot of fun. But Landmark is an institution that I thank God for, because I transferred from Landmark to Florida A&M in Florida. I graduated with a 3.4 on the honor roll. But I owe all that to Landmark College. And for where Dr. Peter wanted to take the college to for 4 years, if I did that in 2 years at an older student, what's going to happen with the young students with 4 years? I mean, because they have more material, and the school has always had sincere professors and teachers. They wanted us to learn for all what we have been through. And I just thank everyone who gave me the chance to bring my self-esteem up to where I am today. And Landmark is the president of everything I do from now on in. And I can read to my grandchildren. But as a man, what hurt me, oh boy. Excuse me. My children, it was hard for me to try to read nursery rhymes. Nursery rhymes. And now, you know, I can read to my grandchildren, and it makes me feel so good. And my daughter, she's getting her doctorate in education, and she teaches special ed because of her dad. She said, I know what you've been suffering with, Dad, and we never knew what it was. You never said you would help us, but you always said you would get a tutor to help us. But again, I just thank Landmark College for helping me to be the man that I am. And it was a hard challenge. I met it, and I'm here as a good witness that it works. We can learn. There's nothing out there that can stop us from learning. Thank you.